Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of the County Seat. It's the legislative session. I'm your host, Chad Booth. We are at the state capitol in the Senate office building today for our show on indigent defense. It is a long constitutional principle of this country that everybody is entitled to defense when they have to face a court of law. And of course, as made famous in popular culture by the Miranda Warning, it says if you cannot afford attorney, one will be appointed for you. And that's kind of where we are with the issue of indigent defense, because it falls upon communities to provide defense for people who are facing criminal charges and they can't afford an attorney. So as we get into indigent defense, the counties struggle, particularly rural counties, at making this all come together and finding an equitable way to present it. That's the topic of our discussion today. A bill is headed to the floor of the legislature this year that will discuss the issue. And to kind of get a perspective on it, joining us for our panel, if we are lucky enough, we'll have the senator join us. We have Marina Lowe, who is the policy analyst for the ACLU of Utah, who has a perspective. Adam Troop is representing the Utah Association of Counties, and the counties who have to bear the financial burden of this also have a perspective. So I want to start the conversation, Adam, with you. If somebody says, well, we've got to run an indigent defense bill in the Utah State Legislature, the assumption is that the counties aren't doing their job at providing this. How are the counties handling this right now?
Well, we're doing it in a number of different ways. There's different structures across the state for how it's handled and how the service is delivered. It can be delivered by attorneys on a contract to the county. It can be delivered by an office, through an office that's actually located within the county, or as in Salt Lake County, it can be done by a separate organization funded by the county but outside of county government, actually. And the cost for that is pretty substantial, and the counties recognize that. I think the question really that comes to us now is not just what additional costs, but what more is needed, what more needs to be done in order to make this system better. I think we would say that we believe that the system is adequately meeting its goals, but we are continually looking for ways that we can make improvements and develop further. I think Marina would say that there are a lot of gaps, and she'll speak to that, but that's sort of the back and forth and the focus that we're trying to get to is what needs to be done and how do we get there.
All right, so Marina, from your perspective, where does indigent defense fall short in the state of Utah?
Yeah, and so I would disagree that you know, I don't think the state of Utah is doing a particularly good job. Now, in defense of the counties, I will say that the constitutional obligation we're talking about here, the Sixth Amendment to the United States Constitution, which is what provides that people need to be provided an attorney if they're looking at jail time and cannot afford an attorney of their own, that obligation falls to the state, not the counties. So the state of Utah holds this constitutional obligation, this responsibility. Our state has chosen to foist that responsibility on the counties with no state funding and no state oversight or guidance. That is pretty unique in our country. There are only two states, Utah and Pennsylvania, that have that same structure. And so, you know, I would not be pointing my fingers necessarily at the counties saying that they're not doing a good job. They're probably doing the best that they can with what they have, and it's up to the state to really start to contribute pursuant to the responsibility that the state holds. But back to your question about the degree to which we might be doing a good job. You know, we identified back in 2011, the ACLU is what I mean when I say we, the deficiencies that are pervasive throughout the state of Utah when it comes to providing for indigent defense in a report that we issued that year. The Sixth Amendment Center was then subsequently hired by the state of Utah to take another look at the extent to which our state is providing indigent defense services consistent with the Sixth Amendment. That report was released just this past year in 2015, and they agreed that the state of Utah is not doing a sufficient job. And in fact, the state is failing individuals who are trapped in our criminal justice system in a significant way.
Oh, I think you set the groundwork for this very well. This does bring up an entire string of questions that I want to follow up with, and I realize that our clock is telling us we don't really have the time. So we're going to break very quickly from this break. We'll come back and add this time to our next segment here on the County Seat. We're talking about indigent defense.
Kanab, base camp for your southern Utah adventures. you belong in Kanab.
What would you do with an extra day in Utah Valley? Explore the Wasatch Mountains? Snap a family photo at Bridal Veil Falls. Cool off on Utah Lake or the Provo River. No matter what you're searching for, you can find it in Utah Valley. Bring everyone together.
Shopping in Davis County has never been better. Experience Station Park, Northern Utah's premier gathering place for shopping, dining, and entertainment. With over 100 shops, Station Park is something for the whole family. Or explore the shopping possibilities this season under one roof at the Layton Hills Mall. Both are conveniently located north of downtown Salt Lake, just off I-15. Come take advantage of special discounts and a wide selection of stores. Visit playindavis.com for more info.
Let's be honest, you don't know much about Beaver County. Well, let me tell you about it. It's the birthplace of outlaw Butch Cassidy and adventurer Philo T. Farnsworth. Some of the best skiing in Utah is at Eagle Point. You've got camping, Canyon Breeze Golf Course, Crusher and the Tushers Beaver Territorial Courthouse, snowmobiling, renewable energy, Pioneer Car Show, Squeaky Cheese, ghost towns to explore, best water in the country, Paiute ATV trails, Old Frisco Kilns, horse races, hunting, fishing, and it's a good place to live. Beaver County, mountains of fun. I could tell you more, but why don't you come and see it for yourself?
Welcome back to the county seat. We are talking about indigent defense. The legislature is supposedly going to take up the session, and we hope that by the end of this half hour, the senator sponsoring the legislation will be able to join us for this conversation. So I want to go back to this question. You say this is a state responsibility. It's been foisted upon the counties. But Adam, some of the counties don't necessarily like the presence of state control and when they're providing services. So how does this fall short of a state commission, which I think is where you're going to argue for? How would the counties like to see this come forward?
Well, I think there's a number of responses to that, and I think honestly Marina would say she'd like the state to go far beyond just a commission to start setting some standards and taking a look at things in more detail. And from our perspective, I think we sort of had the same response. I don't want to see the counties caught in a situation where they've got to respond to recommendations from the state because they came in after decades of this going on and said, here's what you should be doing differently. What I'm hoping we get is a partnership so that we can not only get some state funding into this if there are needs for additional funding, and frankly we both agree there are, but get some funding into it and get some guidance on what exactly the solutions are, but not guidance in a dictatorial way, but guidance in terms of saying, let's make sure we're all meeting this obligation together.
So I think that you're in favor of the creation of a state commission, state regulations, and state funding. Basically, you'd see the state taking over the operation of indigent defense. Is that how the ACLU looks at this?
You know, I don't know that we would necessarily view ourselves as being the architect of what the solution looks like here. Certainly, state oversight and guidance is a component of the solution. And state funding is clearly a piece of that as well. But there are a lot of different models that this could, ways that this could take shape. And you know, it could be that there's sort of a regional models. It could be that there's a statewide office. That's often the way it is in other states. That may not work here in the state of Utah. I don't know exactly what the solution looks like. I just know that certainly there needs to be some statewide component, and there needs to be funding, and there needs to be training. Those are all pieces that are currently missing in our system today, and the result is that we're seeing people suffering. Their Sixth Amendment rights are being denied constructively and actively and actually, and that needs to be remedied.
So Adam, you look at this from a county perspective, and you and I both know, working so closely with the counties, that what works in Salt Lake County doesn't necessarily even work in Weber County, and certainly doesn't work for San Juan County. So you think they need flexibility in how the counties approach this?
Absolutely, but I also think Marina's point is good. If we're looking at how we actually resolve this and how we get these services delivered in the best way, even if I were to say that a small population county was doing a good job with the people they hired and providing resources, that doesn't mean their neighbor with a small population is necessarily. And so I think the question we've got to get to is, what do we really need to do as far as solutions? We are benefited in this state by having people paying attention to this, by having counties involved. But it's not something we have answers to across the board, and I think that's the issue we're struggling with. What do we do to solve that problem?
And I would just add, it's always important to remember we're talking about these big, topics, but these are actually people, really, at the end of the day, who are suffering. And when you talk about flexibility in terms of administration, that may be, but I don't think we can tolerate any sort of flexibility when it comes to the rights that need to be provided consistent with the Sixth Amendment. Those need to be consistent. So whether you're in Juab County or whether you're in Salt Lake County, you're entitled to a robust defense, and that's what the Constitution says is necessary.
So what I think that I hear the difference coming from is that, Adam, you're not opposed, or the counties aren't necessarily opposed to having certain standards of care, using a medical phrase, that are offered to people who are in need of indigent defense, but you don't want the process regulated to a point of saying this is how you will achieve it. Is the ACLU comfortable with an outcome-based approach to how this works, leaving maximum flexibility to the counties on how to get to point A?
Yeah, I don't think we're necessarily in the business of saying the counties can't do a good job of doing this, or that they can't have flexibility to come up with a solution that works for their particular communities. I think in lots of ways it really does make sense to have that expertise and knowledge at the county level. We're just saying, right now the state doesn't even, prior to these reports being released, had no idea how indigent defense services were being provided at the county level. No idea at all. They're providing no guidance, no support. You look at the prosecutorial side of things, and we have a top-down hierarchy all the way from the AG all the way down of prosecutors who are staffed, who have offices, who have regular training, CLE training that goes on a regular basis. And on the defense side, we see counties doing whatever they see fit to do, oftentimes the best that they can do.
And I think we'd probably agree with that concept. If you look at the way the prosecution structure is handled, counties still handle prosecution, cities handle prosecution, but there is that form for what people are trying to do that actually gives the ability to people to turn and say, I need a colleague on this, I need the Attorney General's office to step in and help with this, or we need guidance or training. I think that concept works well on the defense side, and I think the thing that is crucially important for everybody to remember as we talk about this is we are talking about a constitutional right, and the concept is if you're facing the threat of imprisonment, you should have the right to have somebody there represent you against the state, and that's something I think the counties, certainly our county attorneys, our counties in general support. Then the question is, what do we build and how do we do it? Do we have a partnership with the state that works, or are we just going to have standards that we have to try to meet? So it's what we're dealing with now.
Would you advocate for something like a state ombudsman to be the defense equivalent of the Attorney General's office, with a structure under that kind of works?
The problem with that is it's not just somebody improperly towed my car, right? It's an issue of I did not get adequate defense, and as a result, I got sent to prison or to jail, and that I think is the bigger problem. The need for resolution goes to that fundamental right, and how do we get people in place to provide that defense service is the question.
So is your argument, and so I'm trying to be the person sitting at home, and I'm trying to get clear on the argument. Is the argument that they're not well enough trained, that they're not well enough staffed, that they are not getting the defensive tools, that it's just, oh, well, I'll make a few extra bucks if I go represent this guy?
Good question.
Yes, there are all sorts of problems that these numerous reports have revealed. A lot of counties, I think Adam talked about different models that are used. A lot of counties have fixed fee contracts where they put out a bid and an attorney or a firm decides to take that contract. It's usually for a flat fee. So that means no matter how many clients walk in the door, they have to take all of them for that flat amount of money. Sometimes that contract is not enough to sort of cover all of their costs as an attorney, so they have private clients on the side. And what you see as a result of this are really high caseloads in excess of what the ABA recommends as being reasonable for an attorney to handle. You see oftentimes attorneys having to do things like encourage their clients to take plea deals. They might not seek experts or investigators because those costs would have to come out of their own pockets. So all of the sorts of things that contribute to a robust and significant defense might be foregone for cost reasons.
On the other hand, you look at a rural county like Daggett County, they got 900 people that live in the county. And so an attorney probably can't make a living out there alone, let alone handle public defense. And if there are a lot of criteria that don't have some flexibility, I mean, the commissioners probably make $10,000 a year.
It's a fair point. There is certainly a resource issue when it comes to getting attorneys into these sorts of communities, which is why I think a regional model might make a lot of sense, actually, where you have attorneys that might sort of rotate and have a centralized office in a particular region, but work in a number of different counties that are close by.
Don't we have a model like that somewhere working in the state, where if there, multiple counties are sharing?
Not that I'm aware of, actually. There are almost all independent counties handling this through contracts. And again, part of that comes about because you don't have a large number of cases coming in a lot of smaller population counties.
Okay, well, in a very quick answer to this, couldn't this be something like the AOGs get involved in? Because they're already kind of got groups of counties together.
That's an option. It could be done in a number of different ways. It could be done through interlocal agreements. It could be done through a range of options. It could be state offices with local, statewide office with local offices also. But again, the question has to be where are we really falling short? And I think Miranda and I have a bit of disagreement on how often we're falling short on these things. And I think the counties generally are hiring good quality people and they're providing good quality service, but there's clearly some gaps and some things we need to work on.
And let me be clear, we are not maligning defense attorneys at all. It is one of the most honorable professions out there, in my opinion. And I think oftentimes, if anything, it's the fault of the state for failing to provide the resources that these attorneys need to do their job well.
Okay, well, with that, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back here on the county seat. We're talking about indigent defense. It's a topic that constitutionally warrants a good discussion. We'll be right back in just a second.
There is a place where looking out means looking in, where an impression lasting only a few seconds will be imprinted on a life forever, where courage is forged and innocence rediscovered, where remembering is rewarding and forgetting unforgettable. There is a place where truth is felt and where seeing is believing. There is a place.
If you are looking for the center of the universe, good luck. But if you are looking for the center of the off-road universe, look no farther than Paiute County. Hundreds of miles of trails turn your day of riding into a week, a month, heck, a lifetime wouldn't be enough. Explore one of the most famous trail systems in the world, the Paiute Trail. Go rafting on the Sevier River or go boating and fishing at Otter Creek and Paiute Reservoir. Explore Paiute County and discover the magic and beauty of the land where the rainbow ends.
The weekends just never feel like they're long enough. By the time you get to a destination, you're worn out and you may need a vacation to recover from your last vacation. The solution is closer than you think, and that's just what you need. You can find the desert at Little Sahara, the cool refreshment of Yuba Lake, escape to the green of the forest on the Nebo Loop. Make your escape to Juab County. It'll change your family forever.
Welcome back to the county seat. We are discussing indigent defense today, and as we've been promising through the half hour, the sponsor of the legislation for indigent defense in the bill has joined us, Senator Todd Weiler, who is from Senate District 23. Senator, thank you for joining us today.
My pleasure.
Well, these guys have already debated all the issues around your bill, so now we're going to give you a chance to talk to us basically about a summary of what your bill is proposing.
Well, thank you. And I think part of the problem is the state kind of kicked this down to the counties decades ago without any state oversight. And what we found is that some of the counties, like Salt Lake County, has done a really pretty good job. But unfortunately, other counties, haven't had the resources or made it a priority and have probably chosen to, repair roads over funding public defense. And so we're going to create an office with some oversight, we're going to put some state money into it and let the counties kind of apply for it. There's going to be a maintenance of effort, so we don't want them to stop, spending the money they have been spending, but we're going to incentivize them to spend more money, and then also have some grants available where the counties could apply for them. We're going to try to eliminate some of the conflicts of interest that are kind of inherent in the system right now, and provide more support and oversight and training. So.
Okay, so how do you address the conflict of interest? I'm in Garfield County. You got 8,000 residents. You can't really put a public defender's office in Garfield County, and so people who travel there to handle court issues there have to take other clients. I'm presuming that's the conflict of interest you're talking about.
Well, it's not only that, but in many of these counties, the county attorney, who's basically the prosecutor, is kind of choosing who the defense attorney will be, or at least having a lot of a say as to who the county attorney or the defense attorney will be, or who they won't be. And so that's one of the practices I think we need to put an end to. And
approving expenses, for example, that the defense may choose to incur.
Yeah.
So could this create an encumbrance on a county? I mean, you're saying, well, you want them to stay in the game.
Yeah.
But we were talking about Daggett County. You got 900 people that live in the entire county.
Yeah.
Their county budgets are incredibly small.
Yes. So if my bill is sufficiently funded, and I'm fighting every day for that to happen this session, Daggett County will be able to apply for a grant and get some money that they'd be able to use in that
on
regard.
An annual basis?
Well, yeah. I mean, the grants would probably be yearly, but they'd probably have to apply every year. And I think the office will even help them apply, if you will, because we recognize that not all counties are going to have a grant writing staff and crew and things like that.
Okay, so I know a lot of your colleagues up here, and I'm already hearing, well, all we're doing is creating another bureaucracy.
Yes.
So what's your answer to that?
Well, I think we have to create a bureaucracy to get out of where we are right now. And the Sixth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, and the Gideon decision from 1963 say this is a constitutional obligation that the state has, and we've been shirking that. And so I think the only way to get out of it is to create a little bit more bureaucracy to kind of provide some oversight and looking, kind of helping these county commissioners recognize the obligations that we have.
Okay, Adam, you have a question?
No, I don't actually, because I expect we'll see the bill soon. We've talked about this for quite a while, and I think we agree with a lot of those. Again, that the question is, how do we get to solutions to deal with the most urgent problems and the biggest problems? How do we make sure that people are getting the kind of representation they're entitled to under the Constitution? And I think we're all working together on that. We just probably have some different opinion on exactly where to start and what to do, but I think we're on a good path.
Any last comments?
Yeah, and I guess I would just say the devil's in the details. We'll be anxious to see what the dollar amounts are, what the oversight and structure actually looks like, because when it comes to the Sixth Amendment, we really can't compromise on that particular right. So if the bill sufficiently meets those requirements, then I think we'll be satisfied as well.
Okay, you get the last word, Senator.
Well, I'm hoping that we can thread this needle, because there are some competing interests, as you've heard, and it's a heavy lift. I'm hoping we can get it right. So,
thank you, Senator. We will finish with our topic here on indigent defense with a wrap-up. We'll be back at the county seat in just a minute.
There's a little place on a Utah map where I was raised, where my heart's at, where the sagebrush grows wild and high, and the stars come out at night. Oh, there ain't nothing like being raised in the basin with a Ute reservation, skiing starvation, that Duchesne County life.
149 million years in the making, dinosaurs once roamed this land. Now they're found at the Dinosaur National Monument. Let's take you beyond the bones. We call it Dinosaur Land. You'll find it offers adventures and sights not seen anywhere else in the world. Come to Dinosaur Land, Vernal, Utah. You'll want to stay forever. The dinosaurs did.
ATV? Check. Four-wheel driving? Check. Bouldering? Check. Mountain biking? Check. Hiking? Check. River rafting? Check. Adventure is about more than just crossing activities off of a list, but hey, if you can find a place that gives you everything you're looking for, all the better. In Emery County, you'll find the San Rafael swell, trails, lakes, and the small-town hospitality you're looking for. San Rafael Country, in the heart of Utah. Visit us and check something off your list.
The Utah Farm Bureau has always been there to fight for the needs of its members, with discount programs on items ranging from vehicles and ATVs to health and wellness. The membership fees aren't big, but the results are. We've been around since 1916, and we're not leaving anytime soon. Utah Farm Bureau. We work for those who work to feed the world.
Welcome back to the county seat. Our topic today, of course, has been indigent defense. We've had a chance to talk to Senator Weiler and the bill that he's proposing and get some perspective on indigent defense. It stems from the Sixth Amendment to the Constitution, which is a very key and central part to our life in America and the freedoms we enjoy. So I thought it would be appropriate if we took a little bit of time and talk about where the Sixth Amendment came from and what led to the insistence that it be part of our United States Constitution.
As Americans, we are quite familiar with the rights guaranteed by the Sixth Amendment of the Constitution, because on every cop show on TV, when someone is arrested, we hear the Miranda Warning. In particular, the part where you have the right to an attorney.
You have the right to the presence of an attorney. If you cannot afford one, one will be appointed before any questioning. You understand
The Sixth Amendment is also very unique because of that Miranda Warning. While other amendments prohibit the government from taking basic rights away from you, the Sixth actually requires the government spend money to protect your rights.
Anybody who's accused of a crime and is being placed in peril of losing liberty or property gets to have the opportunity to have a government-paid lawyer appointed to defend them in court. And there's a number of Supreme Court cases that make that very clear and make it very clear that ultimately it's a state obligation. The way Utah has handled that is they have delegated that responsibility to counties.
Now, most local governments do desire to protect citizens' rights, but the challenge sometimes is to figure out how to pay for it.
I think everybody is served by having confidence in what happens in the judicial system, and I think we all have more confidence when people are well represented by defense counsel. The biggest obstacle really boils down to money.
So the question remains, is the state legislature as committed as the counties to protecting the right to legal representation? For the county seat, I'm Terry Wood.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the County Seat. These issues are important, and local government is the place that most of the issues that affect your day-to-day life happen. Thank you for watching, inviting us into your home, and remember that you should be involved in this process because local government is where your life happens. We'll look for you next week on the County Seat. If you'd like to share this video with your friends, well, you do that right here. If you would like to subscribe to our YouTube channel, you do that over here. If you'd like to interact with us on the County Seat, that happens over here. If you want to watch the next episode of the County Seat, you can catch it Saturday night at 11 or Sunday morning at 8:30 on ABC4 Good for Utah.